Hello, Melissa and Scott. Megan here. As you can see, it's kind of dark and night-like, so probably what I'm going to do for the majority of this video is make like assemblage artist Thaddeus Zicantor and put my narration in over some videos of bow and scruffles and icicles. But until then, what you need to know is that it is Tuesday. I probably maybe won't get this posted until Wednesday. And it is the night before my theater midterm. So that's what I'm thinking about. Speaking of that, what I'm learning this week is the past is never just the past, and believing in something means that you think it can change the world. Let's back up. The Futurist movement, which began in Italy during World War I, was all about rejecting the past. Not just rejection like a slow ghosting, the Futurists went so far as to advocate for the burning of libraries and destruction of art, which is terrible. They also thought that war was necessary for the health of the human spirit because it allowed for purification, which is even worse. Italy was steeped in centuries of artistic history, but was not making the same technological advances as the rest of the Western world. In time of war, the Italians saw Britain, England, and Germany with their fancy new tanks and flamethrowers and said, "Hey, no fair, I want one." Because war had historically engineered technological advances, it was used positively by the Futurists. Old theater meant putting stories about people on a stage. These stories were pretty focused and demanded the full attention of the audience for at least 10 minutes. That was the past, though, and the Futurists hated the past, so the 1915 essay, The Futurist Synthetic Theater, proposed a theater that was totally opposite. Plays need have no story, logical progression, psychologically real characters, or characters at all, or a central focus. All you need is technology and a hot second to invoke an audience response. That technology could be stage lights, a gunshot noise, or the lighting of a cigarette. The tragic irony of futurism is that though every day brings us closer to the future, every day also takes us one step away from the futurist movement itself. Considering the ideology of that movement, particularly destroying art and favoring worldwide violence for the sake of invention, it's tempting to make like Marinetti and say, yeah, none of that matters anymore. But it does. Because even though the futurists didn't believe in the past, and their offshoot, Dadaism, didn't believe in art at all, the evolution of Dadaism led to groups of people who believed in it very much. Where the futurists thought war and technology would act like cleansers, Antonin Artaud thought that the theater could do that work. He thought that the human race had lost contact with who we are and wanted to use theater as a way to make the audience confront itself and transform. Theater was Artaud's mechanism to change the world. Unfortunately, Antonin Artaud also did a lot of drugs, was clinically depressed, and spent 9 of the last 11 years of his life in an asylum. While there's a temptation to glorify mental illness, see mad scientist tropes everywhere, and conflate it with genius, I think this distracted him. While the 52 electroshocks he received as treatment may well have inspired his cruel, slap-in-the-face notions about the theater, his hospitalization, if nothing else, kept him from implementing the kind of theater he wanted. By addressing the senses rather than the mind, by completely overwhelming and surrounding the audience with stimuli, he would strip them of everything society had taught them to be. Theater was how Artaud was going to change the world. With the exception of Futurism and Dadaism, every major theater movement since 1910 has had an activist bent. The Expressionists were warning of the dehumanization of the working class through their subjective portrayal of the everyman's inner life. The Surrealists and Absurdists were trying to reconcile the chaos of the world by portraying it on stage. Artaud wanted to strip away our acquired inhumanity through sensory overload, and Brecht wanted to educate the audience by providing an objectified version of reality for dissection. Evelyn Gillian of the Civic Repertory Theater said that theater should be an instrument for giving, not getting. Joe Chino, Ellen Stewart, Al Carmines, Michael Allen, George Cram Cook, Susan Glassbell, and Irene Alice Lewisone provided space for playwrights and actors to grow because they saw theater as an instrument for change. The Living Theater, Environmental Theater, Bread and Puppet Theater, and San Francisco Mime Troupe took theater to the audience's space because they too believed in theater. Principles can be traced back to Artaud, which can be traced back to Surrealism, which can be traced back to Dadaism, which can be traced back to Futurism, which goes back to people who believed that nothing they or anyone else had ever done mattered. All of this leads me to believe that, in spite of our best efforts, in the context of other people, nothing we do is or can be meaningless. Everything we do contributes to the greater arc of a history where we use the tools that we believed in, whether that's theater, speeches, the written word, the nightly news, puppets, dragon sculptures, computer programs, genetic engineering, a simple kindness, or a sassy Snapchat. to build a better future right now. Regrettably, it is my understanding that it is not this big idea that we are being tested over tomorrow for our midterm, but rather the reasonably estimated 12 dozen different names of theater companies, actors, actresses, directors, playwrights, etc. that shaped such movements. I've been listening to All Time Low again. And that is what I've been thinking, planning, and learning this week.